Good evening. My name is Carl Schrader, and I am president of the Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition. The Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition is a nonprofit organization made up of homeowner and neighborhood association, as well as individual members. Our mission is to focus on enhancing the quality of life for residents of Clearwater, Florida. This forum is a result of volunteer members like Karen Cunningham, Kelly, Glenna Wentworth, Marcia Powell, Shara Acton, and Marlon Anderson. On March 15th, the voters of Clearwater will vote to be represented by one of these candidates seeking your vote for City Council member seats 4 and 5. We sent these candidates the questions that we are most interested in. These questions came from our members as well as the public at large. Our moderator tonight is Ed Davis, the executive producer of radio station WTAN. I will serve as the timekeeper, and now I'd like to turn things over to Ed. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am your moderator. As Carl just said, my name is Ed Davis. I am the executive producer of WTAN Radio and the Tan Talk Radio Network. Okay, let's begin tonight by going over our agenda. First, I will allow each candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves, to tell about their experience and why they want to be on the city council. Then we will go to questions as pre-submitted by the audience. Candidates will be allowed 1 minute to answer each question. When questioning is completed, I'll allow each candidate 1 minute to make concluding remarks before returning the floor to Carl. I'd like to remind everybody, please be courteous and respectful to each other and to follow the rules of this forum, including time limits. All right, audience out there, remember that candidates are elected county-wide. The city council is composed of our mayor and 4 council members for a total of 5 council members. At this election, 2 seats will be up for election, seats 4 and 5. There are 3 candidates competing for these each seat. Let me begin by introducing the candidates. In seat 4, David Allbritton, Maranda Douglas, and Gerry Lee. In seat 5, Aaron Smith-Levin, Linda Teixeira, and Jonathan Wade. All right, candidates, I want to call on you, please, in less than 2 minutes. Tell us about your experience and why you want to be on the city council. And we will begin with David Allbritton. David?
Thank you for having me tonight. Look forward to talking to everybody in the CNC and also throughout Clearwater. This gives me an opportunity to talk to you directly, and a little bit about myself. I know I got to move it along. Born and raised here in Clearwater. I grew up in Clearwater. My kids are here, my grandkids. First started serving on Clearwater city boards back in the 90s. Was appointed to the Code Enforcement Board. I served on that for several years, and then Downtown Development Board, chairman for about 7 or 8 years. And then I was appointed to the Business Task Force, which I served on for 2 years. And then after that was completed, I was on the executive committee to present to council. And then the Community Development Board. I am a sitting council member now. I'm running for re-election. And the reason I'm running is because I didn't get everything I wanted to get done the first term. And I think a lot had to do with COVID. The city did very well on keeping things afloat and keeping services to all our people in Clearwater. Even with the pandemic, it was very hard, people in and out. And I think we managed to keep everything afloat, managed to stay on budget. But you know, we'd had some things during that period that we did. We completed and opened the Morningside Recreation Center. We finished the $5.7 million Crest Lake Park. We started construction of Imagine Clearwater. We're still in negotiation, 25-year contract for the Phillies. And we're starting a redevelopment area in North Greenwood, which I think is going to be real important for that business community. So
All right, thank you very much. That was David Allbritton. Next up, Gerry Lee.
Good evening. My name is Gerry Lee. I'm running for seat 4. I've been a resident of Clearwater for about 30 years. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Ball State University in economics, political science, and math. I've managed people and budgets, sat on church boards and HOA boards for many years. I am a servant leader. I am a listener. My platform is we need to make changes. We need to move forward. We need to add value. We need to make changes in changing priorities from 2 resident first. We need to change priorities from the 2 square miles in downtown to the rest of the 34 square miles in Clearwater. We need to make changes as far as the use of consultants and contractors, switch those to employees. We need to move forward. We need to move forward logically and realistically, not progressively and helter-skelter. Clearwater is 100 years old. We still have streets without curbs, sidewalks, lights. We still have flooding, and we're spending $100 million on Imagine Clearwater. I want to add value to the citizens' life, because if we make the changes, we move forward, then we add value to their life. In summary, a council member's job is to listen and to talk to the city manager and try to implement things. I will listen, I will try and fix things.
15 seconds.
Vote for me, seat 4, Gerry Lee.
All right, thank you. Then once again, that was Gerry Lee. Up next, 2 minutes for Maranda Douglas.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, CNC, for hosting this forum tonight. I really appreciate opportunities like this to have conversation and exchange ideas with the community. And also thank you, neighbors, for logging on tonight and joining us in this dialogue. You know, it shows me that you are invested in your neighborhoods. You have ideas or concerns, and you're looking for someone who has shared values and will commit to exploring those ideas on council. There's a few faces and names I recognize, but for the ones that I do not, again, my name is Maranda Douglas, and I'm your candidate for seat 4. I'm a Pinellas County native. I am from the Greater Ridgecrest Largo area, and I was fortunate to be brought up in the YMCA, which is where my public service really began. I am the first in my family to graduate from college, and I also hold a business degree from the University of South Florida. As soon as I graduated, quite naturally, I returned to public service as the executive director of FYI Community Partnerships, where I developed and led a community engagement initiative that brought Clearwater's first painted intersection to life. I have served on several boards here in the city, including our Marine Advisory Board, the District 2's Community Police Collaboration Panel, the Clearwater Arts Alliance, and Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition's Economic Development Task Force. And as your candidate for seat 4, I really want to see Clearwater be a place where locals can thrive. And that means ensuring inclusion and transparency in decisions made around city developments. That also means that we set objectives that address our local housing, economic, and environmental challenges. So as your candidate for seat 4, you know, I'm really looking forward to representing and being a representative for the entire range of residents that we have here in addressing their issues and working with you to meet our goals for the city.
Time.
All right, thank you. Once again, that was Maranda Douglas. Up next, we have Aaron Smith-Levin.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Excellent. I am Aaron Smith-Levin. I'm 41 years old. My wife, Heather, and I have been married for 19 years. We both moved here in 2006 when we were having our first baby. We now have 3 beautiful daughters, all of them born and raised right here in Clearwater. I live in the Skycrest neighborhood right next to Crest Lake Park, and I'm one of the directors on our Skycrest Neighborhood Association. The reason I am running for council is because I want the interests of our neighborhoods to be properly represented. It became painfully obvious to me several years ago that our council is run by an establishment that puts its own interests and the interests of friends and donors over the interests of our citizens. When you look at the campaign donations of those who control the council, it should come as no surprise why they vote against our neighborhood's interests over and over and over. There is one establishment candidate in my race being supported by the big money from developers and their attorneys and their lobbyists. Let's just say that's not me. And I believe that is a predictor for whose interests that candidate will represent. The second reason I'm running for council is to fight back against the Scientology takeover of our city. We need leaders who are not afraid of this organization. We need leaders who will not be bullied or embarrassed into silence. In my private life, I help people who are escaping from Scientology through my work with the Aftermath Foundation. We help people who are escaping from the cult, and we work with law enforcement to document the crimes against children, the crimes against the elderly, financial fraud, etc. I am personally working to get Scientology prosecuted and to get their tax-exempt status revoked. I am not afraid, and I cannot be bought, and I cannot be intimidated. I will fight just as hard to protect Clearwater's neighborhoods as I do every day to hold Scientology accountable. Scientology has destroyed our downtown, and they are not done. The establishment has allowed it to occur. It's time for a major change, and that is why I am running for council. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Once again, that is Aaron Smith-Levin. Next up, we have Jonathan Wade.
Good evening, CNC, and good evening, those of you who have joined into this debate tonight. I just want to just introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Wade. I'm a resident of Clearwater, Florida. I was born and raised here in the city, a lifelong resident, minus the 4 years I served in the military and honorably discharged as a Navy veteran. I have raised my family here. I've lived here, and I've been engaged in civic activities in Clearwater. The boards that I served on was about 12 years on the Parks and Rec board. I served under Mayor Rita Garvey, 4 years on the Mayor's Task Force. I've worked closely with Chief Klein in the community. I was president of the North Greenwood Association for more than 20 years. I'm currently a part of the Clearwater Urban Coalition that is working to bring the redevelopment to North Greenwood, and just pretty much been pretty active in voting rights in my organization as executive director of Spiritual Change, Inc., which is located at 1402 North Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. We have a resource center here where people can come, register to vote, find out about precinct information, and to just get general help. And as a social worker, I graduated from the University of South Florida. I hold both a bachelor's and master's of social work degree from the University of South Florida. Currently finishing up my master's in divinity at Payne Theological Seminary. I pastored in St. Pete for 5 years at Collins St. Mark, and currently I'm pastoring at St. James AME Church. And I want to run for city council to be an advocate for communities and those who have been dispossessed and left behind.
All right, thank you once again. That was Jonathan Wade. And finally, we have up next, Linda Teixeira. Linda?
Okay, so thank you all for being here. My name is Lina Teixeira, but you can simply call me Lina T. For those of you who do not know me, I am the eldest daughter of Portuguese immigrants. Despite only having a 5th grade education, my parents worked so very hard and they prospered. I was raised in a traditional Catholic household, and I was the first to attend and graduate from college. And it was there that I met and fell in love with Franco, the son of Italian immigrants. In order to impress my future mother-in-law, I became fluent in Italian, making it my 4th language. Shortly after Frank and I graduated from nursing, we got married and did some travel nursing. Our first stop was Florida, but we never left. So we embarked in the American dream, and we bought our first tiny little home and started our family. First came Bianca, and then came Lucas. It was while I was pregnant with Lucas that we completed that dream and started our small business, which is still open today. While raising my children, I thought it was imperative that I pass on to them what my parents passed on to me: their faith, their work ethic, and their values. One of those values is to give back to our community and our society. For me, it started off very small, but as my children grew older, I became involved with numerous organizations, and I've worked alongside city leadership as well as city staff on countless initiatives, from the environment to being an advocate for victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, to promoting the arts, and the list goes on. All that to say that I believe that I would be a great candidate. Those last 9 years that I've been working with these people have shown me firsthand the challenges that this city faces. And I want to thank all the supporters, including my donors, because they are a rich, diverse
15
group.
seconds.
But they all have one thing in common. They live or work in Clearwater, and they are those people that I will represent. So on March 15th, let me work for you and vote for me, Lina T.
Thank you, Lina. And that'll wrap up our introduction for everybody. And once again, we'd like to thank all the candidates for abiding by the rules and sticking to our time limit. Now we are going to go to a part here where I will read a list of questions. They are submitted in advance by our audience members. I'd like to remind everybody you have 1 minute to answer this. This will be a 1 minute answer on this. So we will start with the questions as of right now. Question number 1 will be how important do you see promoting communication between and involvement from residents, beach to bay, in-city issues, and how do you intend to achieve this? And we're going to start with Gerry. Gerry?
Well, good evening. I think it's essential. In the last few years, the council has not listened to the residents. They have put tourists and business before residents. To promote communication and involvement, we need to get current resident and business data such as addresses, email, phone numbers on most residents. We need to send them emails on a regular basis, encourage residents to sign up for the emails at the website. Utilize the city's existing website, IT department, and public communications, build reports, analyze the incidences, make recommendations with time frames, costs, estimated effectiveness, and measurements for success. That's the easy way to communicate with our citizens.
Thank you very much. And my apologies. That is Gerry. I'm sorry to call you Gerry, but that is Gerry Lee. Next up is Miranda.
Same question?
Same question.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I believe communication with residents is critical, and I definitely, as a concerned citizen, know what it feels like to be left out of the conversation. Last year, or actually last elections in 2020, 32% of registered voters did not vote, but actually 32% of registered voted with 3 seats open. So that left over 70% of the community left out of the conversation. The city deserves someone who will ensure continuous dialogue from someone that they can relate to, someone who is committed to educating them, whether that is on the learning or leadership, and someone who is also committed to advocating for them. I also gained my certificate in community real estate development. And one of the things that they really talked about during that certification process was making sure that you develop relationships with the residents of the community so that whatever developments or changes you decided to in place would be something that they could live with and something agreeable for the community. And so I think that's critical.
All right. Thank you very much, Miranda. Once again, this will be the same question. Next up, we have Aaron.
Okay, great. I think I'm unmuted. This aspect of not only encouraging communication with the citizens, but trying to get engagement and actually participation. I think it's a huge issue. I think it's a #1 issue. I think it can only be done through creative uses of social media. I don't think mailers do the trick. I don't think, putting inserts into the water bill or even having a fancy website does the job anymore. I genuinely believe that in order to get engagement, you have to reach the people on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and God forbid, TikTok. Personally, I have a YouTube channel with about 40,000 subscribers that I use to reach people and engage on issues about Clearwater. Some of my videos about the Clearwater City Council have gotten upwards of 500,000 views. A meaningful number of those viewers are Clearwater citizens, are voters. And I do intend to use the YouTube platform and Facebook to make public meetings, city council meetings, more accessible, more digestible, more understandable. And there are things the city can do, but personally, I can also move the needle on that issue, and that's what I plan to do.
All right. Thank you very much, Aaron. Next up, Jonathan, you have 1 minute.
Yes, my goal is to for listening and getting the message across and making sure that the people are heard is to make sure that we have venues like this, be able to be on Zoom meetings with community CDCs in local neighborhoods, and also being able to just get information out via the text message, via email, and being able to listen when citizens bring complaints. You know, I know that I'm not going to sit and say that we're going to be able to answer everything in the affirmative, but sometimes just being able to listen and hear what people are sharing and try to be sensitive to the needs of each community. I am very community oriented. My ears are to the ground when it comes to communities. Business has gotten most of what it needs, and now it's a time to look back and take care of those who have not been able to get what they need.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Next up, Lina, 1 minute, the same question.
Communication is key, especially since we're challenging, or we have challenged community engagement. I've knocked on some doors where the people don't have any idea of who their mayor is and who their city councilman is. And yet we have many others who feel disconnected. So communication is key. We have to recognize that the world is changing and more people are going online to get their information. And we would like to, I would expand the platforms that are available at the moment so that we can reach all demographics. But I think one of my priorities is to improve our website. It is not user-friendly. It's very difficult to navigate. But we do still have a very significant amount of people who want the traditional forms. And so we need to be creative, perhaps putting a news corner on every rec center or community center, have a loop video. We need to engage and educate our citizens on how to get their information. And we must address all their needs.
All right, thank you very much, Lina. And final, same question, 1 minute, David.
We need every available option to reach out to the public. Today, there are so many ways to reach to people, and not everyone depends on the same single source, you know, for their news and updates as they had in the past. Over the years, the council has tried different ways to reach out, from breakfasts to chats to one-on-ones in public facilities. All seem to work well in the beginning, then interest wanes and programs stop. We did talk about this on council on the dais several months ago, and we thought that chats would be a good way to start back up some kind of a dialogue with the community. And I'm for that. I think we need to get out in the community and listen to people that have concerns. Most people are in their own little world bubble. They don't really have a lot of things to communicate, but there's some people that do. So, you know, everyone also has the ability to email and call us with any issues anytime. We all get the same emails when they come through. So I would say, you know, if you, and we're pretty good at responding. So that's it.
All right, thank you very much, David. Okay, new question, same rules, 1 minute. We will start, well, here is the question, I'm sorry. What are the 3 most important issues facing this city? First up is Maranda.
The 3 most pressing issues that I see for the city starts with attainable housing. Rent in our region has increased to record highs, as well as the prices for homes. And that's an issue that I definitely want to address while I'm on council. Environmental challenges are also very important to me, sustainability and resilience. Clearwater is at ground zero for flooding vulnerability, and the effects of climate change are gonna hit us the hardest, especially with us being on the water. A third challenge that I see is the need for higher paying jobs in our community. We have a history of primarily service-related jobs, and I want to see our economy bring and attract new industries that have higher paying jobs for our community.
Thank you very much, Miranda. Next up, Aaron, 1 minute.
All right, I think I'm unmuted here. So I believe the 3 most important issues facing our city are number 1, protecting our neighborhoods. That is both from intrusive development and also protecting them from a safety standpoint, community policing, a well-funded, a well-staffed police force, well-trained police force, et cetera. Affordable housing, workforce housing is, I think, the number 2 thing on my list for the most important issues facing the city, and we're going to get into that in a later question as well. This concept of Clearwater being as business friendly as possible, we hear at every election cycle. Clearwater has this horrible reputation for being difficult to bring a business to the city and get it up and get it started up and running easily. We need to address this from a city staffing issue, a permitting, from the permitting perspective, the inspection process. When someone's willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to $1 million to open up a business, one particular example I can think of is in our downtown. We need to be bending over backwards to make that a simpler process. So you asked for 3, but I would be remiss if I did not mention a 4th, which is protecting our green spaces. Thank you.
All right, once again, thank you very much. Aaron, next up is Jonathan.
Yes, this question, I kind of piggyback off of what Miranda was just saying. I think that one of the things is that we have to take care of the environment, especially reducing our carbon footprint. I like the idea of what Synergistic came in with. It's being able to reduce the cost and take the money that's raised from what they would use to reduce our electric bill to pay for programs like housing. I think housing is our next issue, to have some affordable housing, and working with programs like Clearwater Neighborhood Housing, Habitat for Humanities, to have affordable housing in Clearwater for those families who are here and those who are moving to the area, to keep our community intact. And the third thing is, I think we've lost neighborhoods. I think we don't have a sense of community. We're so divided, whether it's the beach or whether it's Sankey or whether it's countryside, or we've lost the sense of community. So when I think that's one of the issues we need to get back, is to have a delightful Clearwater or a sparkling Clearwater as a community and come together once again.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Next up is Lina.
Yeah, I have a laundry list, but the best way to describe it is that they all fall under 3 umbrellas. The first umbrella is change the culture from within, because I feel the ripple effect will be very big in terms of how it goes forward. So changing the culture where our residents are being considered customers, and where customer service and satisfaction is pivotal and the ultimate goal. And you will see that in the permitting and all services provided to the residents, housing, and all that. Our second umbrella is embrace our space. Of course, that includes our number 1 resource, our environment, infrastructure, and safety, making sure that our homes and our family and our pets are safe. The third umbrella is what I call correcting the imbalances. Our economy is out of balance. We have all our eggs in the service industry basket. And I would like to aggressively try to get more baskets so that we have a safety net to further future storms. Too much of one thing is unhealthy, and we can see that. We are now sharing our city with a large entity, the Church of Scientology, and we need to address it full on. And we need to do it methodically, rationally, and level-headed.
Thank you very much, Lina. Next up is David.
Yeah, the first thing would be smart redevelopment, which includes public transit planning. We have a vision for development on the US 19 corridor that integrates commercial activity centers surrounded by residential development. And we need to be vigilant to keep that vision. The best plans sometimes get strained by changes in the market. Number 2 would be stay focused on keeping our infrastructure up to date. Clearwater has done a pretty good job replacing sewer and water lines before they fail, but we're struggling to keep up with sidewalk repairs. Street repairs are always an issue, and I'd like to see repaving plan online so all residents can see when their streets are scheduled to be replaced or repaired or repaved. Capital improvements, number 3, will spur our economy and our way of life. The downtown is the heart of our city, and it's been a long road getting vibrancy back again. Scientology parishioners own most of the properties abutting Cleveland Street, and while they pay property taxes, there's no economic impact from them. Opening meaningful negotiations with the church needs to happen. We can save our downtown.
All right, thank you very much, David. And finally up for this question, Gary, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Actually, I came up with 4. The first one is always still putting our residents first. Our local government is to support our local residents. Then businesses are right behind that, and then tourists. We've got to put the residents first, what they want and what they need first. In doing that, we need to look at the traffic. Our traffic is a mess. I know we've got some plans to streamline US 19, but we've got to continue to look at the bottlenecks, gather the statistics, and develop a plan. The next 2 is our marina that's coming up. We know that we're looking at an $18 million renewal on the marina. And then we've got the new city hall. That's probably going to end up being $50 million. I want to make sure it doesn't go the route of Imagine Clearwater, which started out at $44 million, is now up to $84 million, even after trimming some off. I want to control those costs.
All right, thank you very much, Gary. We are now on to the next question. Once again, all these questions have a 1 minute response from each candidate. Next question is, there's a perception among residents that the city has exhibited a preference for granting flexibility to accommodate the plans of developers. Explain how you would intend to level the playing field to allow neighborhoods more leverage in protecting their interests in these situations. And Aaron, you'll be up first, 1 minute.
Excellent. Thank you. So, well, it starts with getting a council that isn't in the pocket of developers. So if I win a seat on the council, we will have a council that is not in the pocket of developers. We need to completely revamp the community development board. We need an onboarding process, a training process for members newly appointed to that board on what exactly it means to fit the character of a neighborhood. And there needs to be a training component regarding Clearwater's comprehensive plan. We probably, and I would be in favor of adding as many as 3 additional seats to the community development board, lay people who are not developers or attorneys or lobbyists, voting seats who actually just represent the neighborhoods. I would also be in favor of adding a position such as an ombudsman to represent the community's interest in a legal sense through the process, because those hearings are, it is a legal process, and only the developers can really afford to hire the experts whose testimony qualify as evidence. When the citizens go and speak in front of this board, their testimony has no legal weight. So those are real solutions that we can enact very quickly.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Next up, Jonathan.
Yes, I pondered this question, and I like the word, there's a perception among residents, and that's true. And I can speak to both sides of that issue. In North Greenwood, we have wanted to do some development and have not been able to do it, but Icy Gully was able to do some development and put a $10 million renovation on the Greenwood apartments and made that happen. We were able to get a recreation facility in the community. They wanted to tear down Jack Russell Stadium and put boat ramps there, and they wanted to put a nursing facility there. And the residents in the community said no, so the council did listen. I think the way to do it is to get the meetings together and have meetings with residents and listen to what's being said and vote according to what fits the nature of the community. The city has gotten it right on occasions, and they have gotten it wrong on many occasions. So I got to be consistent. I want to be fair with the question. It doesn't always turn out negative. Sometimes it turns out the right way.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Next up is Lina. Lina, you have one minute.
So the code as we have now, there's a process, and there's 3 levels. The first is the city staff reviews it. Then the second is the community development board, and then the council. But the bottom line is that this code was written and adopted in 1999. So it makes it obsolete. It is no longer working for the world that we live in right now. So I would, lead the charge to redo the whole code with a laser focus on clear definitions and parameters, language that is not open to interpretation. So all parties understand. I also am a proponent of adding more board members, which will add to the diversity of their background, and also inform the residents a bit earlier than what it is right now, so that the residents can be prepared and can respond accordingly and process what is before them.
Thank you very much, Lina. Next up is David.
There may be a perception that we favor developer interests, but we give everyone the right to build according to our development code. I kind of agree with what Lina just said. We are looking at a new development code. We brought a new code to our downtown, and we have a new development code for the US 19 corridor that we brought out. Flexibility in our code is actually more defined than our old system variance. There are boundaries even for flexibility. Even if you take flexibility away from everyone, you're going to find it more problematic when an average citizen wants to get something done to complete their product. So be careful what you wish for. The flexibility we have is just a larger box in our code than the smaller box that doesn't take flexibility. So it's not that we're giving people something that's outside our code. We aren't. But I think we could work on that, and I'm up for listening and how we could do that.
Thank you very much, David. Next up is Gerry.
Well, we've spent lots of money for consultants to study and make recommendations. Then people bring situations to our council. Our council has sometimes ignored the recommendation of the study. Sometimes they ignore the recommendations of the staff. Sometimes they ignore the protest of the residents. For the most part, we should stick to the plan. We should not give businesses unfair advantages because they have more money than the average resident. If we all are on the level playing ground, then we can say, what are the rules? And let's all follow the rules. We realize there need to be exceptions to the rules, but those should be few and far between. We should not be putting up many storages in neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerry. And finally up for this question is Maranda.
Another great question, and I do agree with the community that there's a perception that the city does favor flexibility for the plans of developers. Clearwater has a history of leaving cash poor neighborhoods in a position where they're unable to fight back against big buck developers. The code has been subjectively defined to benefit those developers, and what we could do is encourage the planning department to be more inclusive, to be more diverse and balanced. I know the CNC also has been studying this, and some of the recommendations that I applaud were that they wanted to update the current code to create more meaningful buffers to protect the neighborhood. I voted to save the Landings Golf Course, and unfortunately, my incumbent did not do that. Even after the community said, over 60% of them said that they did not want that development in their neighborhood. And I think we could also increase early and minimum notice time so that neighbors can get engaged in these conversations and really have a platform to address their concerns in the community. And I look forward to being that liaison.
All right, thank you very much, Miranda. Before I ask the next question, I would like to just remind people that are watching online or listening online that we do have 6 candidates here. And although I'm using their first names only just to move things along at a good pace, our candidates are David Allbritton, Maranda Douglas, Gerry Lee, Aaron Smith-Levin, Lina Teixeira, and Jonathan Wade. So you know who they are. Their names are also listed there. Okay, on to our next question. Once again, these are 1-minute responses. Last year, Clearwater's vehicle thefts were up 28% and sex offense was up 13%. What will you do to reduce the incidence of crime in the city? And first up, Jonathan.
The crime in Clearwater, what I would do is to put the information out to make people aware, number one, that the crime is up and that that the vehicles need to be locked and those things. A lot of times these young folks that are stealing these cars and breaking in vehicles go into cars that are already open. I think we should have to work with the juvenile justice system to make sure that once they catch the perpetrators, that they get more than a slap on the wrist. That they get that the police have the full support to make sure that the crime that was committed sticks, and that person is deterred from doing that crime again. A lot of time in the system, there's not enough consequences to deter people from breaking into cars. So the police need to have the support that they need to have to reduce the crime in Clearwater.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Lina, you're up next.
These numbers solidify my belief that we need to properly equip and allow our police department to have the resources that they need to address this. But in the last 3 years, I've attended countless HOA meetings, and I've heard these officers give their monthly reports. And each time they've stated that the thefts and vandalism to vehicles were partly, if not in majority, due to unlocked cars. So public awareness is important. I also, in regards to the sex offense crimes, I am the chief advocate for victims of human trafficking. And in that organization, it's been ingrained in me that public awareness is important, educating the public on what to look for, what behaviors to recognize, and then how to report them. So these are numbers that are not good, but I believe that with public awareness and supporting our police department, we can hopefully decrease them.
Thank you very much, Lina. Next up is David.
It seems to be a national trend on all this stuff, and the national average is much higher. I'll just simply state that I've always put safety at the top of my priorities in Clearwater, and keeping a strong professional police department is how I'll combat this trend.
Thank you very much, David. Next up is Gerry.
Well, again, we're just council members, and the amount of things that we can actually do is relatively limited. So what I would do is I would go to the police department and I would ask them to generate some reports. Where are these, what are the natures of some of these thefts and sex offenses? Develop reports, analyze the incidences, make recommendations with timeframes, cost, estimated effectiveness, and measurements for success. Once we've identified some of these areas, we need to make that area aware. We need to make the neighborhoods knowledgeable that a lot of this stuff is happening in their neighborhoods, and what are some simple steps that we can do. I mentioned earlier, we have streets without any street lights. Street lights would help. A standard for street lights throughout the city would help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerry. Maranda, you're up.
Another great question. I currently serve as the chair of District 2's Community Police Collaboration Panel, and I had a conversation with Chief Slaughter this morning actually about this and how we can continue to support him. One of our goals for the panel is to foster a stronger sense of community and trust with our police officers. And that means the community stepping up and taking responsibility around some of these issues. And if it's as simple as locking your car doors, that's something that we have to do. I agree with Gerry as well. We need to have more street lights in well-lit areas so that we can deter this kind of behavior. Another thing that I mentioned to Chief was, what are we doing about our habitual offenders? What are we doing about our young offenders? And he talked to me about, there is a program that they have, a habitual offenders monitoring enforcement team that really works with these young kids and tries to deter them away from these opportunities and does really have these crimes stick with them for a little bit longer than being a slap on the wrist. And again, it's gonna really come down to leaders in the community stepping up and being role models.
Thank you very much, Miranda. Finally up for this question, Aaron.
Okay, so I want to start my answer to this question by emphasizing the fact that we actually have a very safe city. When you talk about percentages of increases that are occurring in certain categories, either in certain categories of crimes or perhaps in certain areas of the city, I think it's important to note that these are increases that are occurring on top of what is a very small base to begin with. I just think that's important to keep in mind because our police do an excellent job. Police officers who give briefings at the neighborhood meetings say darn close to 100% of the car crime comes from unlocked cars. But as council members, we're not going to go educating all of our citizens about that. I think two important things that we as council members can do is make sure that the police have the funding that they need in order to be well-staffed and highly trained. And also, we can put a strong emphasis on community policing. When the police know and are on speaking terms with the folks who live in the neighborhoods that they are policing, it helps the police do their jobs better, and it makes a safer environment for all of us.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We are on to the next question now. Our next question is, Clearwater recently adopted the Green Print 2.0 sustainability plan. What are the three most important elements, and what would you do to ensure these are achieved by March of 2024? First up for this question is Lina.
So first and foremost, kudos to Sheridan. I think this is a clearly written strategic plan with well-defined goals and time-sensitive deadlines. And so that would be my number one. Number two, I like the fact that it extends the 2011 original document, meaning that its first priority is greenhouse gases. It is particularly important for Clearwater because greenhouse gases have been responsible for flooding and rising sea level and droughts. So it is particularly sensitive to Clearwater. So having that goal remain the initial and the most important goal is something that I really enjoy reading about it because it is important. The last, but certainly not least, is that it is a living document. We have seen in the last 3 years that we don't know what the future lies. So to have a document that we can continue to refer to and make appropriate changes as the world changes, that is important, that we use this document to consistently review and make appropriate changes.
Thank you very much, Lina. Next up is David.
Okay. First would be reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions by 10% by 2025. That's in our adopted Green Print 2.0 sustainability plan. The second thing would be mandatory green gold standard minimum construction specifications on all our future city facilities and require the same on city initiated RFP projects. And then the inclusion of resilience planning and build to better prepare Clearwater for the effects of natural disasters and sea level rise.
Thank you very much, David. Next up for this question is Gerry.
Okay. I will use we've heard it before, but we're looking at what can we achieve by 2024. We're talking to citizens and what can we realistically expect. And it comes back again to reduce, reuse, and recycle our trash and our water. And I especially want to pay attention to the water. We've got a groundwater replenishment effort that we've invested millions of dollars in, and that will help fill the aquifers so that the water doesn't seep in and overlay us. And so I say we need to continue to that. I looked to see where we were on that, and the last information I found was on 2019. But two additional things that us as citizens can do is we can look to our enormous park system that we have and create community parks in there. We could go to rooftop gardens. We could try to make this city prettier.
Thank you very much, Gerry. Next up for the question is Maranda.
You're muted, Miranda.
Thank you for that. I was saying, I think Greenpoint 2.0 is an amazing opportunity for us as a city. I reviewed the synergistics proposal that was submitted to council, I think back in April, and I was not only impressed by their plans, but better informed about what we can do to take action on that. Unfortunately, again, the incumbent voted down on that partnership. However, that is going to be critical as an organization for us to partner with them in reaching our goals of 10% reduction in energy use in our city buildings. Another goal that's a little bit further out that I think that we could reach sooner is to have 5% of workers ride their bike to work. With vendors like Hopper or Coast Bikes in their bike share services, that is another opportunity that's going to help alleviate our traffic and our transportation issues. Most importantly, as we've all heard, is the climate adaptation and prioritizing partnerships with leaders around this area. Sea level rise is going to affect our city more than others, and lack of inaction, at least for over the past 10 years, has held us back. And so we need to stop thinking about prevention and prepare and adapt.
Thank you very much, Miranda. Next up is Aaron.
All right, so the 3 items that I picked was educating the public. The city cannot reach its goals without the involvement and engagement of the citizens, becoming more energy efficient in terms of the city's own buildings, and proper preparation in terms of flood preparedness. The question is, what can you as a council member do to ensure that these are achieved by March 2024? In some respects, what I as a council member would do is get out of the way and let the experts get on with what they're doing, because Clearwater is going in a very good direction right now. John Jennings, our new city manager, has made real progress with this 2.0 sustainability plan. We're lucky to have a city manager who not only embraces his plan, but thinks we can actually very easily do better. I think he believes the plan doesn't actually quite go far enough. He's currently interviewing for candidates to fill the energy manager position. We've heard some candidates mention Synergistic. This is a company that's going to come in and basically advise the city on what it can do to meet its own goals. And it wants to be paid by basically taking half of the energy savings that are created. As long as we're making sure that we're getting the best deal possible on how much of those savings we keep and how much of those savings we pay to Synergistic, that seems to be a very viable path forward. It may also be a good time to am I over?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Finally up for this question, Jonathan.
I had a lot of good ideas from the people that came before me. I agree and concur. I did look at the synergistic model, and I do think that the money that they could save us, that $1 million a year over the long haul, that we can take that money and reinvest back in our communities. We do have to reduce our carbon footprint. The plan is already in place, and as a council member, we need to stop stalling and waiting to make things happen and get on board and vote for the plan that you already got penciled out in place. They've kind of laid back and not wanting to move currently, but if I was on the council, I would go ahead and move towards hiring Synergistic to put it in place to get the savings. They've already saved the school board $39 million. We need to be a part of that process. So to reduce our carbon footprint, to have more communication with Duke Power, for them to reduce their carbon footprint and to keep Clearwater moving in the right direction.
I thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to the next question. What plans can you help Clearwater put in place within your first 12 months of term to offer housing to families earning less than the average median income? And first off, 1 minute for David.
Well, we have a good plan already with our housing authority to give incentives to low-income housing. I voted to start to have the first workforce housing development in our old fire station, and I'm glad that's moving forward. The company that came in on that a couple of years ago to the CRA worked 2 years very hard on getting that project going, and I'm glad we're getting that started. But I'm looking at ways to bring in other areas to have workforce housing. We're in desperate need of workforce housing in Clearwater. We have a big service industry, and most of the people that work in that industry can't afford to live here, can't afford the apartment rates. And so there are plans that it just seems more and more that we're getting plans to, because of the incentives, to do something there. And I will fully support that.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Next up is Gerry.
Well, it's a kind of a tricky question, and it's a long-term situation. How do we help half the families? That means we're going to help half of the people in Clearwater. And I'm not sure that many of those don't already have that problem solved. So if we're talking about helping those who need the help, we have a department, the Economic Development of Housing Department. Working on that, we would work with them and ask them, what's your recommendation? What have you been working on? What direction is the community, the nation going in? Can you give us some information so that we can begin to analyze, digest, and agree upon a path forward to handle this situation? Then, after that housing development has reported to us, as council members, we would determine a direction and a priority.
Thank you very much, Gerry. Next up is Maranda.
I agree that we do have a lot of resources already in place around this. The key is going to be being intentional and prioritizing these housing alternatives. The data that we have on Clearwater's AMI is a little bit over $40,000 per family, but that was pre-COVID. And so we know that that has drastically changed. Some things that I would like to see are some prevention plans for people that are living right on the edge of the eviction. There is no green print for attainable housing. And so we are really working on the information that we have that is coming directly from the residents. I believe in results. And so I think that we should really be focused on setting goals, finding ways that we can review them and ensure transparency around those plans. Habitat for Humanity is already looking at doing townhomes and duplexes to address the growing density concerns. And again, we do need to find incentives for developers to build more affordable housing units.
Thank you very much, Maranda. Next up is Aaron.
So, this question is looking for something very definite that the council itself can do. And I think one of the things that's most within our reach would be to support a motion to require a certain percentage of any new apartment building developments, that a certain percentage of the units be set aside for workforce housing and affordable housing, in order to know what that right number would be, what that right percentage would be. Require consultation with the experts at the city to get it right. But it is within the council's power to make such a thing happen, and it wouldn't take a long time. So that is what I'm committed to.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up is Jonathan.
As I think back over this portion, I was a recipient of first-time home buyers program through Clearwater Neighborhood Housing. So was my mother, first-time home buyer through Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services. And since that time, Habitat for Humanity has come on board. So I would support putting more money in the city's economic development to make that available so people could purchase housing, and to have some foreclosure money also put in place, because we, like Miranda said, we're in unprecedented times. People are working one minute and then they're out of work the next minute, and they fall into not having income to pay for the house that they just purchased. So I think we have to have an incentive to where some of that money can be forgiven, that we can make people an opportunity to get money through economic development to be first-time home buyers. Or I like what Aaron just said. I'm still his thunder, but I think that's a good idea to have a mandate for people to new development to have a percentage set aside.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And finally up for this question is Lina.
So obviously, I agree with a lot that has been said. So this will be a great opportunity to expand on that conversation. I look at workforce housing as a Band-Aid. We have a gaping, bleeding wound. And yes, the Band-Aid is necessary, and it is the first line of defense. But let's look at the underlying issue, the cause. Having all this affordable housing does not solve the problem, that continuous bleeding wound. The problem is that we don't have the opportunities for our residents to have well-paying jobs to end the circle of need. So this is a great opportunity to expand that conversation, look at underlying issues, and deal with the real problem. We don't have enough well-paying jobs for these people to choose their homes and end that circle of need of affordable housing.
Thank you, Lina, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to the next question. What ideas do you have to plan and protect the city from rising seawater? And first up for this, as the clock strikes 8, is Gerry.
Well, we do have a person in the city that has this responsibility. What are we going to do about the rising seawaters? We need to have that department give us some information, quantify what is the real problem right here in Clearwater. We need to know what the obvious ones are, of course, is reduce greenhouse gases, buffers, clean the air, obey the wake zones, and add sand to beaches, raise the cities, pump water out, etc. But again, one of the main things that we can do is, again, I like the groundwater replenishment. If the ground is already saturated with good, clean water, then as the others come in, it doesn't necessarily prevent it, but it helps. My time's up.
Thank you, Gerry. Next up for this question is Maranda.
Sea level rise is going to be a huge risk for our city. I was reading the paper from yesterday that really highlighted this issue and the changes that we could face, even if there was a surge of about 6 inches or more. The council has unfortunately met sea level rise with inaction for the past 5 years, if not longer. And so I plan to support the execution of our green print target timelines. And 2 of those goals that they have in green print are an ordinance for climate adaptation as a citywide priority, as well as building partnerships with regional, state, and national partners that can help us focus on this. And again, I just want to say that we've gone past the issue of prevention. We must work towards preparation and adaptation to protect our residents, their homes, and our businesses. That means restoring the seawalls and doing as much as we can to educate the community on being prepared for what might happen come the next hurricane.
Thank you, Maranda. Next up for this question is Aaron.
Thank you. So I want to talk about our community rating system, our CRS. Our CRS score is our measure of flood preparedness. The more prepared a city is determined to be to deal with flooding, the lower the score. The lower the CRS score, the lower the flood insurance premiums for all of our citizens who are required to pay flood insurance. The county has a CRS rating of 3. The city of Clearwater has a CRS rating of 5. We need to get Clearwater down to a 3. As council members, we can prioritize, support, and fund the engineering initiatives that would be required to bring our score into line with the county score, and that would save all of our citizens an awful lot of money.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up for this question is Jonathan.
As previously stated, I support the Greenpoint 2.0 plan and continue again to vote for policies that will decrease our dependence on fossil fuel and other pollutants of the environment, and to vote to advocate for the 2.0 plan. The other part is to not build in flood zones. Right now we're building where we know that if we have any flooding, that those houses are going to be underwater. And Pinellas County proper has a big chance of having a major flood, and that would be catastrophic. So I'm supporting the 2.0 plan and working from there.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up for this question is Lina.
So to me, the best thing that I could do as a councilwoman is to honor the hard work that went into the Green Print 2.0 and use it as our, I don't know, I guess, quote, in quotations, our Bible. So make every decision based on, and the reference to the Greenprint 2.0. A lot of work went into it. It was a lot of experts that were contributing to it. And I think that is our major game plan. I also believe in partnerships. And just to reiterate a recent example, the way Clearwater partnered with Ocean Allies, where we got 1,500 volunteers to pick up tons of trash. That was a great partnership. And I believe that that is also key. Partner with people who are experts, who have the resources and have the knowledge, and together get things done.
All right, thank you, Lina. And finally, for this question is David.
Yeah, the council imposed a 1-foot freeboard on all requirements in the FEMA designated flood zone. So any new construction not only has to meet FEMA designations, they have to be a foot above that. Also, we are exploring options for applying FEMA hazard mitigation funds for buyouts of properties that are especially vulnerable and repeated in severe flooding areas. We should evaluate the costs and benefits of installing green infrastructure, low impact development, and rights of ways as a means of reducing strain on stormwater system and improving compliance with our water quality standards. And then explore areas where imposition of setbacks in advance of further development could avoid strain on stormwater management system. Also, as Clearwater replaces their seawall system, we've asked that they all raise those up 1 foot. I think it's a good idea for not only on city property, but anybody that's replacing seawalls, which we have a lot of that now because the seawalls are 50 years old, most of them, and they're needing replacement. So just get them put a foot higher, and that'll give us a little protection in the short run.
All right, thank you, David, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to the next question. The question is, who are the top 5 non-governmental employers in Clearwater? What will you do to help those firms stay in Clearwater? And Maranda, you're up first.
So the city of Clearwater has many service-related positions or job providers, such as hospitality for the restaurants and the hotels. Costco is also a very big retail job industry here that we have. We have P-Tech and SPC, and a lot of nonprofits here in Clearwater. But, I want to really advocate and represent for small businesses. I believe that they are the backbone of our economy, and they need more resources so that they can thrive here in Clearwater. And so what I would like to see on the council is dedicated mentorship, rent relief or location alternatives for businesses that don't work out in certain areas, and support that goes beyond ribbon cutting. I also want to take advantage of Clearwater young professionals because I believe that they have the energy and innovative ideas that we would need to get ahead of the curve and really support those firms here in Clearwater.
All right, thank you, Miranda. Next up for this question is Aaron.
All right, so, depending on how you want to define largest employers, your list is going to look a little different, but we're talking about companies like Tech Data, Lincare, Baycare, Morton Plant, MarineMax, et cetera. Large employers want to be where taxes are low and where employees want to live. If we focus on community, neighborhoods, and family, I don't think we're going to have any problem holding on to large employers. We can support initiatives like making sure we have attractive, walkable neighborhoods and neighborhood parks, providing various events, entertainment, and other activities programmed into our neighborhood rec centers, and hopefully soon enough, imagine Clearwater. But I really don't think we need to focus on bending over backwards to please the companies. I think we need to be bending over backwards to please the people who live, work, and play here, who work at those companies. And that's where I would focus.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Next up for this question is Jonathan.
The top 5 government employees in Clearwater, I came up with Baycare, which Morton Plant is a part of the Baycare healthcare system, Empath Health, Tech Data, the Lincare Holdings, and Big Graphics. Those were some other ones, and I think to keep those folks here, that to give them a tax incentive to to hire individuals in the community and give them some taxing breaks. And with the people that are employed at those places, to make sure that they have affordable health care and transportation that can get them to and from their employment. Those are some things that I think are incentives to help people stay in Clearwater and to have a place to work and play. Those are the things I would put in place.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up for this question is Lina.
So I guess the top 5 have already been mentioned, but I would like to circle back to Baycare Health Systems. This is an employer and a community partner. Not only does Baycare employ tens of thousands of our residents, but they provide a very important service. And especially with our population being heavily leaning towards the aging, this is a service that benefits our city greatly. So this would be an employer that I would like to offer a welcoming environment so that they can prosper and expand their services. And it is imperative that we involve the economic development department, because it would be, I think, very useful to help these businesses navigate through all the incentive plans out there to help them grow and thrive. And there are many incentive plans out there that can help us do that, because if we cater to businesses like this or entities like this, where they provide a very treasured service, as well as employ our residents, I think it's imperative that we provide that environment.
Thank you very much, Lina. Next up for this question is, David.
Okay, well, I've heard a lot of companies being mentioned by other candidates here. Tech Data, BIC, they may have a Clearwater address, but they're county. The 5 big ones in Clearwater that we're proud of having: Baycare, 4,500 employees in Baycare in Clearwater, 25,000 in their whole system, but we've got 4,500 of them here in Clearwater. Know Before is the second one, and that comes in at 1,000 employees, and it's right downtown Clearwater. So best kept secret in Clearwater. AmeriLife Insurance, 800 employees, and then followed by GE Instrument Company. We helped bring them in 2013. They're down in the off of Hercules, 680 employees. And then Marine Max, they've got a lot of employees, but here in Clearwater, they've got about 500. So what am I gonna do to keep them? I've always maintained the revamp of the building department and making it more customer friendly will go a long way to attracting new businesses and keeping the ones we have. I mean, they're always expanding and looking for getting bigger. So that's what I'm gonna be working on in my second term.
All right, thank you, David. And finally up for this question is Gerry.
I don't know why we say, let's keep the top 5 employers. What we want to do is we want to keep everybody on an equal playing field. We just talked about that in one of our earlier questions. It's nice to have the top 5, but I think what all employers are looking for is a good worker base, people who are happy. And I think that what we need to do is, from a city perspective, we need to work on our infrastructure, and we need to create an environment where our residents can be happier. We need to turn our attention from business to the residents. Like I've said before, if you've got good streets, you got good lights, you got curbs and sidewalks, you don't have to worry about flooding. Now you can worry about or be concerned about getting to work and performing a good job. We take care of traffic. So the essence is, let's make our citizens happy.
Thank you, Gerry, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to the next question. The question is, what do you think of zoning changes that would increase population density in Clearwater? And first up for this answer is Aaron.
Okay, great. So philosophically, I'm against it. I think it is our job as elected officials, first and foremost, to protect the quality of life of the citizens who are already here. That's what we're elected to do. We are not elected to just continuously show year-over-year growth just for the sake of growth. However, if we are talking about increasing density, because it will get us a project that will move us closer towards attaining our goals with respect to something like affordable housing. And if infrastructure allows it, and if it doesn't impinge upon our green spaces, then I could be convinced to support such a project. It's going to be a high hurdle to clear with me because my bias is most definitely on the side of not increasing density and retaining the quality of life in our neighborhoods.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Next up for this question is Jonathan.
Well, the changes that I would make to increase population density in Clearwater. Clearwater is a city that's been built out for quite a while, and you know, most of the redevelopment that we're doing, there's too many. There's just not enough room. So it has to agree with the community itself. If in North Greenwood, we need more affordable housing. In South Greenwood, there needs to be more affordable housing. So there could be a place that could maybe have a apartment complex placed there. But then there's other communities that it has to speak to the traffic patterns and being able to get to and from places that I would be against the density. So it would be a case by case test for me, and it would have to do a very careful listening to what the community that is the proposed project is going to be placed, to hear what the residents of that neighborhood has to say, rather than coming up with my own ideas about what I think should happen.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Next up for this question is Lina.
So allow me to be pragmatic. Clearwater is not a country with borders. And research shows that Clearwater is getting new residents every day, and I don't see the trend stopping. So we need to address it head on and honestly. Presently, Clearwater has been built out in terms of land, and it's widespread, with many of it being one level building. So obviously the only selection is to move on up and build up. But we have to consider our present residents. And when planning, we must be strategic. So we consider the infrastructure and feasibility and try to maintain a harmony between present residents and future residents and our neighborhoods. It will be challenging, but we need to address it head on and do it with responsible development.
All right, thank you, Lina. Next up for this question is David.
You know, density is not a bad word if planned correctly. Density creates vibrancy and keeps taxes down. Density must go hand in hand, though, with infrastructure and transportation planning. Clearwater works with Ford Pinellas, which is our land planning council, and MPO to make sure that all three of these factors work together. And I do serve on that board, and we keep an eye on it, and I think it's good if planned properly. You can't have density without transportation. You can't have transportation without density. So I'm not against it. I'm for it, if done in the right way.
All right, thank you, David. Gerry, your answer.
Well, I would not make zoning changes to increase population density. As we've already mentioned, a lot of Clearwater is already built out. We already have a traffic problem. And most of the people here in Clearwater live where they live because they like it. To change the zone so that we could fit more people in the same area would be good for tax revenues. But it would not necessarily be good for the citizens who are already living there in their current neighborhood. We have changed some zones and had variations or variants so that storage facilities could be built near residents. That angered the residents, but the city putting businesses first, they allowed it. What we should do is work the plan, solve the existing solutions, and try not to create new problems.
All right, thank you, Gerry. And finally up for this question is Maranda.
I think that Clearwater could be that resilient community that fosters growth. And on the council, what I would like to see and what I would like us to be challenged with is reusing these abandoned buildings that we have here. We have a lot of buildings that were initially used as building offices or workspaces that just don't fit the culture of the community anymore. And incentivizing developers to build around that or build properties that do complement the community is something that we need to address. And as long as we work to develop our transportation options and to tackle the attainable housing challenges that we have, again, I think that increasing population density in Clearwater is something that we're already faced with. People do want to come and live here. We just need to make sure that our community is prepared and we're getting creative about how we can address that.
All right, thank you, Miranda, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to the next question. The next question is, what ideas do you have to enhance neighborhoods that would be beneficial to younger families? And Jonathan, you're up first.
Well, the ideas that I would have for neighborhoods is would speak also to communities. I really believe, and I said this before, that we need to get back to having parades in our community, having a place for families to be able to come out. We already have very nice parks in most of the communities. That's one thing that the Parks and Recs Board did. Every new park is state of the art. Every pool is a great pool. So to continue that same legacy, to make sure that there's good childcare, that there are great recreation amenities, that the neighborhoods are safe, that they get good policing, good community policing, not over-policed, and to just have the resources at their disposal as far as childcare in their communities that's affordable. That's one of the biggest hurdles for mothers in particular, that they can't afford the childcare for families in particular. I shouldn't say just mothers, but families in particular, is to have affordable childcare so that they're worried about their children while they're at work.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Next up for this question is Lina.
So that brings me back to, 10 years ago when I did have a young family, and I think, what was my priority back then? And for me, it was always safety. Where are my children? Are they safe? Are they okay? So for me, safety would be imperative. Make sure that these neighborhoods with young families remain safe neighborhoods and have all the services that are necessary to ensure that safety. And then I would move on to the services that young families use in their everyday life, right? Libraries, rec centers, baseball, sporting programs, after-school programs, childcare, and those are important in everyday life in young families. I do also have an idea where I would like to reinstate the matching grant for neighborhoods who want to improve them, and maybe use that to include features that are family friendly. So I think there's a lot to do, but supporting the services that the families need is pivotal.
Thank you, Lina. Next up for this question is David.
Neighborhoods should be planned with parks and green spaces for young families to enjoy. Clearwater leads all neighboring communities in parks and green space per acre. We will always look to enhance our living experience with regional rec centers and as well, and keeping them maintained and adding programming for young adults should be ongoing.
Thank you, David. Next up for this question is Gerry. Gerry.
Well, I asked the question, why beneficial to younger families? Once again, we're segmenting the community here. We should enhance the neighborhoods to be beneficial to all families. We should have good sidewalks everywhere. Right now, there are 330 miles of roads in Clearwater. There are 380 miles of sidewalks. We should have a lot more sidewalks. We need the lights that I've mentioned. Some don't even have lights, but we have a lot of parks right now. One of the metrics that the fire department uses is they look at their fire stations and they say, how soon can I get to any residents within my area? I think we should have the same standards as to how close is any location to a park. We should be spending our budget dollars on these projects instead of spending or thinking about spending millions of dollars lighting the causeway to the beach so that it's prettier.
Thank you, Gerry. Next up for this question is Maranda.
This is another great question. As a young family, I do have a young child, so I'm a young mother, I suppose. And I think what has to be at the forefront of this enhancement is going to be attainable housing. Without that, no one will see the benefit of living in Clearwater. I read a quote a couple of weeks ago that say people vote with their feet before they cast their ballot. And so families will literally just move out of the neighborhood. Some things that I would like to see personally is some more children's museums here. We have the Glacier Museum in Tampa. We have Great Explorations in St. Pete. And I think that's a wonderful venue for the kids and the parents, so that they can be together. I also noticed too that in our city magazines, it seems like the recreation centers offer either youth programming or adult programming, and not so much as family programming. And so that's a project that I would like to see through to make sure that we are being inclusive and representing the entire family and bringing them together with programming. The parks that we have here are wonderful, as well as the recreation centers, and just adding those kind of anchor businesses would attract other local family-friendly shops.
All right, thank you, Miranda. And finally up for this question is Aaron.
So this is an easy one. I think the answer is definitely neighborhood parks and walkable neighborhoods. And by walkable neighborhoods, I mean sidewalks. So I speak from experience on this. Not only do I also have a young family, at least for a few more years, my girls are 15, 13, and 11, but we also live right next door to Crest Lake Park. So just look at what a beautiful specimen Crest Lake Park is for Clearwater. Look how many young families are coming to that. Also, I can say that as I've been going door to door during this campaign, there is one major thing that determines whether a neighborhood feels family friendly at all. It is amazing how unfamily friendly a neighborhood feels when you have to either walk in someone's front yard or walk on the street. I don't know how some of these young families even do it. It makes it difficult to even enjoy the outside space. So neighborhood parks, walkable neighborhoods, that's my final answer.
All right, Aaron, thank you for your answer. And thank you, candidates. We're on to the next question. The question is, if the sheriff's department told you it could provide the same level of service to Clearwater as the police, but at a lower cost, what would you do? First up for this is Lina.
So although I think the responsibility of being a good custodian of our citizen tax dollars and will consider any cost saving measure, in this particular instant, I believe that the Clearwater Police Department is best equipped to serve our city. Our city is unique, and Clearwater Police Department knows it inside and out. And they are part of our fabric. And I shudder to think that if we do make the mistake and do go with the sheriff's proposal, and we make a mistake, can you imagine the expense and the journey of reinstating the whole department? As of now, I strongly believe the Clearwater Police Department is best equipped. It's part of our community. I see it every time I go, and I see them engage with our neighbors. They know them by name. I see them in all the HOA meetings. I'm very firm on this.
Thank you, Lina. Next up for this question is David.
No, I could almost say the exact same thing Lina did. I mean, our police force is part of the fabric of our community. And, there's so much more to consider than money in keeping our own force here in Clearwater. And I'm proud of the police force, and I'll always support them. They know the community. They know what needs to be done in the community, and we have a very professional police force, and I'll always support them.
Thank you, David. Next up for this question is Gerry.
Well, if I look at the question, I say, why is the sheriff talking to me? Secondly, I would vote to decline the offer, but it depends. But based upon the information here, I would vote to decline it. If the offer was accepted, Clearwater would then just become one of many cities vying for sheriff protection. We would have little say over the protection they provided, the flexibility, the scheduling, the special events. The list could go on and on. In fact, I would go one step further and recommend ensuring that our police department officers are paid more, have better benefits than the sheriff personnel at the same level. We should be the epitome, not just equal.
All right, thank you, Gary. And next up for this question is Miranda.
Another awesome question. If I was proposed this question, what I would think about first is cost reflects quality. And I would first consider where the city of Clearwater Police Department may have room for improvement and seek ways that we can be innovative around filling those gaps. I would also explore the conversation with the police department and ask them, would they be willing and able to train our local department to perform at that same level better and at a similar cost? I think that after a conversation with Chief Slaughter, he reminded me that these guys are working 24/7. They have figured out our community. They have broken it down into districts where they are able to tackle each area's unique challenges and face the opportunities. And so I wouldn't decline this conversation at all. I would explore it and have an exploratory conversation with the Sheriff's Department.
All right, thank you, Miranda. Next up for this question is Aaron.
So I think a government's number one job is to protect its citizens. I would never be in favor of ceding the responsibility for keeping our citizens safe to the county. I wasn't clear if this was just a theoretical scenario or if the Sheriff's Department has some amazing cost-saving initiatives that maybe we could benefit from implementing in Clearwater. I'm all for exploring and implementing cost-saving initiatives, but what I'm not for is reducing funding or staffing for our police, and I would never be in favor of relinquishing our city's ability to police ourselves.
All right, thank you, Aaron. And finally up for this question is Jonathan.
Call me old-fashioned, call me nostalgic, call me what you will, but ever since I've been in Clearwater, we've had a Clearwater Police Department. I saw what happened in Dunedin when the sheriff took over Dunedin. I'm not for being over-policed. I haven't always had the best relationship with all the police in Clearwater, but with Chief Slaughter and formerly Chief Holloway and community policing, they have done a great job with providing a service to Clearwater that I think is pretty much second to none. There's always room for improvement. I support keeping our police department on the macro level, looking at the Sheriff's Department, even the customer service and the communication and the interaction seems different to me than when I'm interacting locally with Clearwater Police Department. I can get a better response. I get a better feel. So I would not be for combining, even at the cheaper rate. I would not be for doing away with the Clearwater Police Department.
All right, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, candidates. We are now on to our final question before concluding remarks. Our final question is, what council member are you looking forward to working with when you're elected? First to answer that will be David.
I look forward to working with and sharing ideas with all our council members. Each of us are elected as representatives of our community, and each of us should want to make decisions for the betterment of the whole community. So anybody that gets elected, I'll do my best to work with them, and good luck to everyone.
Okay, thank you, David. Next up, Gerry.
Well, at this point, I have no favorites. One, possibly two of them will be gone after March 15th. Of the three that we know are there, each of them are unique. They have their own calling. They present a needed perspective. I would really like and want to work with all three of them. Each bring the needed perspective on how to address the service. The city has provided all of these assets. And then finally, I could learn lots from all three of them.
All right, thank you, Gerry. Next up for this question is Miranda.
I too look forward to working with each council member on the dais in regards to city matters. With myself included, I feel like there will be a new mix of perspectives that add value to our decisions around city projects and improvements. Most importantly, a council member's real work is reaching out to the residents and the businesses in the community, continuously engaging staff across the organization, making sure we read the agenda, following up, asking questions, and seeking out expert opinions, and that is how I'm going to distinguish myself from the other council members, is that I'm going to be willing to get out there and do the hard work.
All right, thank you, Miranda. Next up for this question is Aaron.
So I look forward to working with all of them. The question itself, which ones would you look forward to working with? I do not see being on the city council as like being a part of some kind of a social club. City council members are not there to make friends, although I'm sure it's a very nice bonus if city council members get along and are personal friends. Council members are there to do what is right for our citizens. I would like to think that all of the members of the council would approach the job in that very same way. And in that spirit and in that regard, I look forward to working with all of them.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up for this question is Jonathan.
This is a very good question. I thought it was a trick question, and I'm going to play it safe, just like everybody else. I would work with each person. I do have a favorite. Kathleen Beckman is one of my favorite. Sometimes I cringe as she sits up there advocating, and most times it's 3-1, 4-1. Sometimes 3-2. So she would be one person that I would really like to work with. But I'm going to play it safe with the rest of the folks on the council. I'm willing to be able to come alongside, hopefully, and add some support and leverage to some of the ideas that I think she formulates. And she's a champion for the underclass. She's a champion for neighborhoods, and she's a champion for green energy. And she's somebody that I respect. And not to say I don't respect the others, but I liked her tenacity and attitude.
Thank you, Jonathan. And finally up for this question is Lina.
I'm actually looking forward to working with all of them and adding my particular skill set and experience. And I acknowledge that some relationships will be more challenging than others. But, I've been blessed to have a rich tapestry of relationships. I have friends that are on the Sierra Club and some that don't believe in global warming, some that are atheists and some that don't believe in evolution, Democrats and Republicans, and my life is richer for it. I enjoy healthy debates and exchanging ideas. I don't isolate myself with like-minded people. And more times than not, I walk away realizing that we have more in common than not. And sometimes I've been given reason for pause and vice versa. So having my addition to the council with 5 very different people, I think is great. And we have a job to make, we have a job to do, and all 5 of us have to participate, and I look forward to it.
All right, thank you, Lina. That wraps up our questions for this event. And we are now on to concluding remarks. Candidates, I'm going to give you 1 minute for a closing statement. And first up will be Gerry Lee.
Well, I am running for seat 4. You should vote for me. I want the city to do better. I want to represent all. We are 100 years old. We're still addressing problems that should have been solved 50 years ago, and we're not doing that. We need to change. We need to make our residents our first priority. Then we need to move forward with logical programs to support progress. When we've done those, we want to especially integrate our infrastructure. Right now, I see a lot of miscommunication between the different departments. We can accomplish this, we can add value to our citizens, and we will try to implement this for everybody. I am a listener. I am a servant leader. I work hard. I want you to vote for me.
All right, thank you, Gerry. And next up is candidate Maranda Douglas.
Thank you again, CNC, for hosting this forum tonight. I learned a lot, and I think I'm going to take away a lot of valuable insight from this conversation. And as I close out tonight, I just want to remind the community that as your candidate, not only am I willing to do the work, I'm going to keep you in the loop on what's going on and how you can help me make informed decisions on the council. The 3 pillars of my campaign are relate, educate, and advocate. I am from the neighborhood. I'm aware of the challenges it takes to represent all of the neighborhoods in Clearwater and their unique needs. I'm ready to do the hard work. I stand to support our families with safer streets, healthy environments, and so where the locals can thrive. I look forward to working with the council and most importantly, with you all to set goals and get results. I ask you neighbors, how can I help you? And I urge you to elect a representative that you can depend on. Vote for me, Miranda Douglas, for seat 4.
All right, thank you, Miranda. Next up is candidate Aaron Smith-Levin.
Well, everybody, thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us tonight. During this campaign, I have already personally knocked on just over 2,500 doors in neighborhoods all over the city. I'm going to knock on another 2,000 doors before March 15th. In every neighborhood I go to, I talk to voters who are sick of not being heard and sick of not being represented. They are also sick of having city leaders who seem to be in the pocket of Scientology. On March 15th, Clearwater will either get more of the same old, or we will get some meaningful change. I hope you are as excited as I am at the prospect of meaningful change. And I hope that on March 15th, I will have earned your support and your vote for seat number 5. If I am elected, you have my word, I will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up is candidate Jonathan Wade.
Yes, my name again is Jonathan Wade. I am running for seat 5. I just want to say that I am looking forward to being elected, and I pray that I can garner your vote on March 15th. I am a community person. I believe in community. I'm a community activist, and I believe that I can be a welcome addition to the dais. As you can see from my picture, that I am from a diverse background. I am a social worker, I'm a pastor, I'm a people person, I'm a good listener, I'm compassionate, and I believe in the human worth. So I am looking forward to serving you on the council, not serving myself, but serving you and being an advocate for everyday blue collar individuals.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up is candidate Lina Teixeira.
So I see this campaigning process as an interview process. So imagine, if you will, you're trying to hire someone to take care of something that you value deeply. And ask yourselves, what are the qualities and qualifications you're looking for? Is it experience, leadership skills, an abundance of body of work, passion, commitment? How much do you value a history of good judgment? I believe that I bring diversity to the city council, but I'm not referring to what you see, but what I bring to the table. As someone with a nursing degree, I have a deep and profound respect for balance. And I have been trained in methodical problem solving. As a small business owner, I'm resilient, outcome-driven, and I acknowledge and recognize the importance of adapting to an ever-changing environment. As an artist, I look at challenges with creativity and look for out-of-the-box solutions. So do your due diligence. Look at our resumes, call our references, because I'm asking you to hire me on March 15th, Lina T.
Thank you, Lina. And finally up is candidate David Allbritton.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. 1 minute, I don't get to say a lot, and so I'll just top it off with, I guess I'm not the diverse candidate on this panel, but I am a candidate that has grown up in Clearwater. I understand Clearwater's history. I see the vision of where Clearwater needs to go. I've worked hard. I'm passionate. My family and grandkids live here. And I don't think that I got a full 4 years out of my first term with COVID. Pretty much got cut 2 years short. So even though we got a lot accomplished last four years on, we've got a new city attorney, new city manager, a start on Imagine Clearwater. We're going vertical on that. There's a lot of things I want to complete. And one of the big things, being a 39-year retired contractor in Clearwater, I see that we need to have work on our planning department. Our building department needs to be more customer friendly. It needs to be customer friendly for everybody, because everybody that goes into Clearwater that we get over the years, I've seen given money to bring people into Clearwater, somehow they leave because they can't get past the building department. So that is one thing that I started, and I want to complete it in my next 4 years. Please vote for me on March 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, on a job well done. And thanks to our audience that was listening and watching us tonight. And to our audience, who would like to remind you, no matter whom you're going to vote for, please get out and vote. Thanks to all once again.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you, candidates. You made it really tough. I encourage all of the citizens and voters of Clearwater to reach out to these candidates, go meet them in person, talk to them, get to know them, because one of them is going to represent you on the city council. So I'd like to thank Ed Davis. I'd like to thank the members of the CNC, and I'd like to thank the candidates for your time tonight. And why you chose to do this job, I don't know, because it's not a part-time job and it's a lot of work. And I appreciate all of you and all of your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thanks.